page 172 to 173. As they walk in, Marty notices something going past them.
Two kids on homemade scooters, roller skates nailed to a 2x4 with an orange crate on top, rattled past them.
Subtle foreshadowing in this book. The merest ghost of a hint of how Marty will use them as skateboards shortly? Haha, nope, screw subtlety.
Marty smiled at the crude prototypes of the sleeker and speedier skateboards that would come later.
And all I can say about it is this, Blair. Anyway, George walks in and sees Lorraine with her girlfriends. They've got names. Betty and Babs. George feels nervous. Where is the help he was promised by the alien? And we get this frankly amazing line.
Was it possible space people were even more sophisticated bullshitters than my fellow Earthlings? George McFly.
George asks for advice on what to say and Marty gives him their.
Just tell her destiny has brought you to her and you think she's the most beautiful girl you've ever seen. Girls like to hear that
speech, and George is writing it down, and Marty says,
"What the hell are you doing, putting me on?"
And George says,
"Yeah, I'm putting it down. I mean, this is good stuff."
George walks in and we all remember this badass scene, but here it is only crazier. In the book, of course, it is as non-badass as is probably physically possible.
Give me a milk. Chocolate.
He hoped it would take a long time, but the milk arrived with disappointing speed. He took a slurp to fortify himself, then literally hurled himself toward the booth where the three girls sat.
And if there's a bingo board for poorly written books, we all get to dab the square that says literally used to mean figuratively, but I'm pretty sure we've all gotten bingos by now anyway, because come on. Up next, George tries out Marty's lines on Lorraine.
"My density has brought me to you." Lorraine looked up, heard the words almost before she realized who had delivered them. She recognized the young man whom she'd been introduced to yesterday by Marty. He looked approximately the same, except that now he was wearing a brown moustache of chocolate milk. She did her best not to giggle. "I beg your pardon?" she managed to say with feminine dignity.
Then Biff walks in and says,
"Hey McFly, I thought I told you never to come in here."
And it interrupts George's speech.
As effectively as someone yelling fire.
Ah yes, that brings back memories of all those times I yelled fire but with a period at the end instead of an exclamation mark. Best not to get too excited, you know. And whoa, this next bit is legit awesome because it foreshadows the traveling back to the Old West story of Back to the Future 3, which hadn't even been written yet at the time of this book. So that was a nice accident that we can't give Gipe credit for, but let's anyway because it makes the book better than it would have been otherwise. Yay. Credit for everyone.
Biff Tannen and his henchmen were at the door, leering at George, their hands on their hips. Slowly, deliberately, like gunfighters taking over a small western town, they strode into the store towards George McFly.
But in the book, Marty's still outside for some reason. So instead of reacting like he does in the movie, he wanders in behind Biff, who amazingly didn't notice the guy he already wanted to fight once hanging out by the door. Anyway, in both timelines Marty tries to help George out by tripping Biff.
Marty withdrew his foot, inwardly congratulating himself on the best-timed trip he had ever executed.
Biff gets up amid
titter of derision and shouts, "You! All right, wise ass. It's fat lip time."
Which isn't in the movie, but I love it anyway because it's also what I say every time I play The Loneliest Punk, but it does mean we miss this nice moment. And on the next page, they fight. There will be roundhouse punches. Let me summarize the fight scene for you. Biff throws a roundhouse right. Marty dodges, counters with a hard left to Biff's gut and a punishing right to his temple. Biff staggers, drunkenly, and falls backwards into a table. As he falls, Match, 3D and Skinhead, Biff's goons, advance on Marty.
Oh, Marty thought. These aren't good odds unless you happen to be Superman.
Marty runs out and like in the movie, Lorraine calls after him.
That's Calvin Klein. Oh my God, it's a dream.
Only since again she already knows for a fact his name is Marty, she says.
I mean, Marty.
And this is stupid. Is it supposed to be a joke that she keeps calling him Calvin? It worked in the movie because she didn't know his real name. Here in the book where she does, she just comes across as super thick. Sorry Lorraine, but you real thick. Watching this scene,
transfixed with fear and awe,
is George McFly, who is about to burst into tears because things didn't go his way again.
Damn, he thought, it's gone wrong again. Even with help from outer space. I'm a dud.
And let's assume that second last period is supposed to be a comma, and yes, it feels petty to point out grammar in this book, but wow, all it needed was a simple proofreading / very detail-oriented page-by-page review, am I right? Marty runs out of the store, wincing because he's got new 50s shoes on and they hurt his heel, and thinks,
damn these new shoes.
Which is a detail that's not in the movie, so there you go, now you know Marty damned his new shoes. Some kids are yelling encouragement at Marty, which is nice.
He would gladly have traded all that moral support for a couple of tough friends, but none seemed in the offing.
And I was going to complain that none in the offing is probably a weird typo version of none were offering, but hold up, because it's a nautical saying and I love the sea. This is one of the many phrases of nautical origin. It is quite simple to understand once you know that the offing is the part of the sea that can be seen from land, excluding those parts that are near the shore. Early texts also refer to it as a fin or a fin. Thanks Gipe. I learned a new nautical saying. I will file it in my brain next to ahoy and thar she blows, and file a new mental note to say thar she blows more often, because seriously,